It was the midnight screams that shattered the peace of Mbeni village. Piercing, desperate, and full of terror, the cries echoed from deep within the cursed forest. The villagers, paralyzed by fear, rushed to the edge of the woods. But by the time they arrived, the source of the scream had vanished. All that had left was a trail of blood leading into the heart of the forest, an unnatural silence that made villagers shiver. No one dared to follow except for Emeka. Emeka had heard the stories whispered in hushed voices by the elders, tales of a woman cursed long age who once roamed Mbeni village. She was large, far larger than any woman should be, her body bloated by a supernatural force. The villagers could call her Nkiru, but it wasn't her size that made her feared. It was her hunger. She was said to eat not just food but the souls of the innocent. Her curse had trapped her in the forest, and anyone who ventured too close would be vanished by her insatiable desire for more. Emeka's heart had been broken when he heard that Chidinma, the love of his life, had gone missing. The night she vanished, her screams echoed through the village, but by the time anyone arrived, she was gone, just like the others before her. The only clue left behind was a strange, deep set of footprints leading toward the forest. The villagers were convinced Nkiru had taken her. Emeka, unwilling to accept her death, knew he had to enter the forest no matter the cost. He couldn't let her become another soul to feed the cost. As Emeka ventured deeper into the forest, the air grew thicker and the trees seeming to close in around him. The paths became less clear, covered by shadows and whisper in the wind. The tales the villagers told him ran through the mind of Nkiru, of the soul she had devoured, of how she could still be alive in the deepest parts of the forest. Every step felt like he was sinking deeper into a nightmare. Emeka's journey took him to a clearing in the forest where he saw her Nkiru. Her bloated body loomed like a shadow, her eyes glistened with a savage hunger. She stood in the front of a giant ancient tree, surrounded by the remains of those who had come before him. Her voice grumbled, "Now you have entered my domain. You will feed my hunger too." Emeka's heart raced as Nkiru took a step closer, her body creaking with every movement. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the ground beneath them seemed to tremble. He knew this was his only chance. With a premier shout, Emeka lunged forward, his blade flashing under the moonlight. But just as he was about to strike, Nkiru's eyes glowed a deep red, and she laughed. A sound that echoed through the forest, sending a chill down Emeka's spine. With a final desperate swing, Emeka's blade found its mark, but as the blade struck, Nkiru's massive form began to crack and dissolve like a dust in the wind. However, her final curse lingered. Emeka's body started to convulse and his eyes began to burn with an unnatural red glow. He had won, but at a price. The curse of Nkiru had borne itself to him, and now it was his hunger that would never be sated. As the sun rose over Mbeni village, a new figure emerged from the forest. It was Emeka, but he was no longer the man who had entered. His eyes burned with an insatiable hunger. The villagers watched in horror as he approached, knowing that the curse was not truly broken. The forest had claimed another soul, and now it would claim them all, one by one. And so, the curse of Nkiru lived on, passed from one soul to another. Mbeni village would never be the same. For as long as the forest stood, the hunger would never end, and neither would the terror.